Uh, No decisions were made. Very much. Okay. Turning to public session, first item will be a public hearing. Discuss the acceptance of $15,000 donation, the purchase of a drone. Chief?
Need to open the hearing?
What?
Motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
Oh, my goodness.
Second.
All in favor of opening the public hearing?
Aye.
Please give your name on the microphone.
Does that sound better? Oh, look at that. That just tells you how loud my voice is anyway. So I'll start over again. Roy Holland, Enfield Chief of Police. So we are not a large department. We are 7 full-time, 3 part-time. One of the things that we charge in our department to all the officers are what are some of the ways that we can improve our department and what we can offer to the town of Enfield. So this year, it was brought to me that some of the officers would like to start a drone program. Obviously, that is more of a want. And in a tight fiscal year, I said, that sounds like a great idea after we talked it through. Go find the financing, and then we'll talk some more about it. So that's what they did. They went out and they spoke to the Byrne Foundation, told them about wanting to start a drone program for the town of Enfield. And the Byrne Foundation sent a check for $15,000. The drone itself is approximately, we are looking at several different ones, but it's approximately $12,000. Then the remaining $3,000 would go towards training, spare parts, and a lot of things that I didn't know prior to this are other little things that you need for a drone other than just buying it and putting it up in the air, such as pads to launch it off of, a couple spare parts, extra batteries. I just learned the other night about battery storage because there are certain lithium batteries and stuff like that. So the $15,000 will cover the entire cost of the startup of the program. So then we researched and went through and developed a model policy. We don't have a policy in place now because you can't have a certified accredited department. You can't have a policy in place for something you don't have. Makes sense. And so that's what we're here for today, is to look to get acceptance on that. What I would like to say is to kind of spell out what the drone program would do. We'd send at least 2 officers to be FAA piloted, licensed pilots of a drone, and then they would work on getting the COW so that they could then certify more officers as needed. It would be a secondary duty of at least 2 officers, maybe 3. And the supervisors would be authorized any call-outs or deployment of the drone. So the drone would be used for calls such as search and rescue, situational awareness, disaster management, fires, tactical deployment, incident scene documentation, team training. So I just want to cover a few of what those are, because I know, since we talked about this a couple weeks back, there's been some speculation about how often would Enfield need something like this. And so I'm going to go through each one of these and give you some examples that we've had here, even in less than the last 12 months. So search and rescue operations in the last 4 months? Yeah, 3 months, we've had 4 calls where we reached out to a neighboring department, Lebanon, to get their drone and assistance for looking for search and rescue. 3 of the 4 were on for elderly people in town, and 1 was for a child. So that is an example of that situational awareness. Great one I like to use when we talk about this is I was working here in town back in 2006 when we had the microburst come through, and we were trying to get a situational awareness of where all the lines were down, what roads were open, what weren't. This is a tool that the town could use to help quickly evaluate what routes are still open and what routes are closed, what lines are down, what erosion has happened along 4A, for instance, when that slid into the lake. Another situational awareness would be as soon as this project, this program was kind of put out there, I received a call from Jim Taylor, our highway department. He was like, hey, do you think we could use that to check out the water tower a couple times a year? Because right now we have to send somebody up there. Nobody really likes climbing up to the top of that tower. So that's another situational awareness situation that this could be used in. Disaster management, again, that goes along with the situational awareness. Fires, me and Phil have talked about this, the fire chief, and a scenario I'd like to just kind of put in people's mind here is and we've had this happen before. Fire gets reported up by Smith Pond on the other side of Route 4A, and while our fire department is gearing up to respond, our drone operators are able to dispatch our drone up there and actually pinpoint where the fire is, how long it is, how big it is, which direction it's headed. That's going to increase their capacity to respond appropriately to that fire up in that area. Tactical deployment. Just 3 weeks ago here in Enfield, we had a situation with a barricaded subject with a gun, and it was reported that the person may or may not have a hostage. We were waiting for the drone to show up when the person who was the potential hostage and the barricaded subject gave themselves up. That is just one tactical situation a drone could be used in something like that. Identify, is there a hostage? Is there not a hostage? Where is the person barricaded in the house? Incident scene documentation. Unfortunately, through the years, we've had fatal crashes, serious car crashes, where documenting the scenes are difficult, and the better we can document them, the better we can either prove a case if we have to, and or provide that information to highway safety for possible road improvements or situations that are causing crashes and stuff like that. And then there's routine training. One of the things that the drone will not be used for is surveillance. Right? New Hampshire RSA specifically prohibits it. It's specifically prohibited within our policy. And if for some reason, and as I stand here today, I can't think of a specific situation where we would use a drone for surveillance, but if it were, we would have to apply for a search warrant, and the judge would have to review that search warrant and be granted. Now, I can tell you, before I was chief, I spent 11 years as a detective sergeant, in charge of drug and narcotic investigations, along with all the other investigations in this town. Spent my fair share of time doing surveillance. And I can't imagine how using a drone to do surveillance for something, i.e. Drug surveillance or something like that, would be useful. The flight time is less than an hour. And then you got to put it up and put it down. And, I know I've seen a few drones in the air, and they're not exactly, super tactical or stealthy. So me personally, and I'm currently the chief, so I'm the one that make those decisions, don't see a drone as a surveillance as a benefit to the town of Enfield or our investigations, those parts. I know there's been some questions about cost. So the cost of the drone is, as we talked about already, the ongoing cost, other than the electricity to charge it, and then the batteries. So it has a warranty for 16 months. We do have some money in there to buy some extra batteries and some spare parts for the common ones that get broken. Outside of that, when I talked to Lebanon, they haven't spent money on their drone other than, and if we did, I would say that we'd stay within the current budget that I have now. I'm not asking for any additional funds as such for the drone program. The only thing I'd like to add to that is programs like this with a department our size are one of those things that also, one, they're a force multiplier that help us support the town of Enfield, respond to help the people in the town of Enfield. But it's also something that may or may not help keep an officer here in Enfield. You know, not every department you get to go to, you can have the opportunity to be a drone operator or something like that. And if you come to work for the town of Enfield, you're not going to make sergeant in 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, stuff like that. But, and so we like to put things forth that will, one, benefit the town of Enfield, but also, help officers want to stay here longer, stay here, for, stay within our community after we've, spent the time to educate them, train them, and they get to know, our community in the way that our community wants the police department to interact with the public. Other than that, I'll take some questions from the board first.
Hold until.
I'd also like to hear from the public.
Public comments. State your name first, please.
Elizabeth Rizzo, can you hear me? So tonight I would like to bring up 3 concerns, not necessarily for or against, but, and if I run long, flag me down if someone's waiting and I can come back at a later time. But the 3 components I would like to talk about are need, costs, and then policy. So I was able to look at the police activity report as published in the town report, and I don't see anything specific line item having to do with search and rescue. I don't know if that is something that we just haven't started doing yet, but if we are going to state that we need something because we've had this many search and rescue requests, I highly recommend that it then be enumerated in the town report. The other thing about the town report, it was interesting that in the 2025 annual report, the Public Safety and Organizational Enhancements Committee made no mention of the need for a drone program. So we talk about search and rescue, and I got a little bit of flack on social media when I asked for a use case for this. And of course, I want elderly loved ones or children to be found in a timely fashion. But I'm also a data-driven person. So according to Fish and Game, they have at least 10 drones with ease of access, including the Upper Valley Wilderness Response, which is a very locally located response unit. In 2024 and 2025, they had a total of 16 search and rescues. That's the wilderness response, not Fish and Game writ large. None of those were in Enfield. Yes, Lebanon has responded to Enfield. Lebanon also does not specifically track their search and rescue. I was able to talk with one of the officers in Lebanon who had a great conversation with. He knew who I was and what I was asking questions for. But there are also organizations like New England Canine, Androscoggin Valley, Pemigewasset Valley, things like that, that the need is fulfilled in those other resources. So it's not that Enfield would completely go without, it's just it already exists in the community. As far as costs, the chief alluded to the additional costs that may or may not have been realized when he first presented. I think that one of the things that's important to know that if this drone program is up and running and the lifespan of a drone, depending on who you read and what drone, is between 4, 6, potentially 10 years. Will we then need another drone? Or will we say, well, we've done our drone program and we're not going to cost anything to the public or added budget to the taxpayers, so therefore our drone program discontinues. I highly doubt that, right? We would want to replace that drone. And in 10 years, I'm going to imagine that it's going to cost significantly more. The Lebanon officer I spoke with said that there was a great deal of time and effort for his officers, and they have 2 pilots. So for his officers to do the training before they took their FAA exam, I'm curious, are we expecting our officers to do that on their own time? Will we pay them overtime? Will they do this on the job, and therefore we'll have to have additional resources to be out in the community? So that is a cost. It's a person human capital cost, if you will. The other thing is that you would need to take part in 14 CFR 107, which it's the Code of Federal Regulations that the FAA manages. You would need to set up something for in case, heaven forbid, there's an accident. So if the drone causes property damage over a certain dollar amount or hurts someone, or the lithium batteries blow up, or whatever the case may be, you have to fill out an incident report with the federal government, and there is, again, administrative burden for that. So you have to have that in place. I don't think that that's necessarily prohibitive, but it is something to consider. And then would the department engage in additional liability insurance? Is that something the town feels that they would be able to roll into their regular insurance? Again, when I spoke with the officer in Lebanon, they do not have any additional liability insurance for their drone program. Again, Lebanon has to be cautious, as well as Enfield would need to, because as the crow flies, our town borders that 5-mile distance to the Lebanon airport, where is a no-fly zone. We also have to be conscious of, if you go further up, as you head into what is West Canaan, we are then in the Class E4 airspace, which is the DART helicopter airspace. So these are things that just to be aware of, which I'm sure general training does not necessarily train you on your specific airspace regulations, but it's definitely something to take into consideration. Finally, my point about policies, I'm glad to hear that there are certain things that are prohibited by New Hampshire RSA. One thing I would like to point out, although talking about surveillance for particular crimes, I would like to see anything written into policy that they will not use these drones to surveil peaceful protests, specifically. Don't think that that's a good use of that. I also would like to see as policy that no town employee or elected official or their family should profit from this program. I think when it was initially introduced, there was a comment about, well, my brother or brother-in-law, somebody owns a drone business or something like that. I don't think anyone should be profiting from directly or indirectly from this program. And finally, I think that also any Enfield police officer, while they are part of the department, should not be able to then also license themselves or market themselves as a private drone operator. Should be limited to their duties while they're working for the municipality. And finally, and the chief even just
Excuse me.
alluded. Yes.
That's the fourth finally. Trying to be very polite here.
Would you like me to finish?
Statement.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just a little nervous. Okay. Really finally, the chief just alluded to that this is a nice to have, not a need to have. And although he corrected himself during the initial presentation, sometimes that slip of the lip is all you need to really understand what people are thinking about. I understand it's a recruitment and retention tool, but he did comment that this would be a nice toy before he corrected himself and said for tool for the department. So that is what I have to say about that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. I know there was a gentleman. Again, give your name when you come up.
My name is Mike Beach. So I agree with all the good uses of the drone, and I certainly agree with all of the worries about the drone. I was looking at what Concord does, and Concord actually has, I don't know if it's an ordinance or a regulation, and if I had to make any sort of statement about this, I would take this out of the policy statement of the department, put it into an ordinance. And that way, it's easier to change the policy and have it not be known than it is to have a public change in an ordinance in Enfield. So I would certainly suggest that. But if you look at the Concord statute, I guess, for lack of a better word, they have a list of 8 prohibited uses, including random generalized surveillance, monitoring, harassment, continuous monitoring. And I would suggest that the Enfield look to that regulation as a framework to craft something that's publicly available instead of a policy in the department. There's obviously a warrant requirement in the Concord document, but I would add a couple things. I would say that there needs to be data collection. The data collection needs to be in whatever way is needed to protect privacy. Data collection, there needs to be issues about storage, that after a certain number of days, it either has to be used in some criminal evaluation or it needs to be discarded. There needs to be records that would include the date and time, the location, the purpose, the duration. Those need to be audited, and they need to be publicly available. And I think that the other thing I would say is that the selectmen, after a year, need to have on an agenda to reevaluate whether or not the drone policy should continue. Maybe do that on a yearly or basis. So.
Thank you very much. Sir, back corner.
Robert Bradley, Enfield. Make it quick and sweet. The online, there was a lot of back and forth as far as in the comments and stuff when it's produced. And basically, 1 minute it says it's a grant, next minute it's a donation. Which one is it? There was a lot of confusion about it. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, good evening. I'm Madeline Johnson. I have a couple of questions for Chief Holland. One was the drone decisive in locating the people who were lost in the example that you mentioned? Was the drone what found them?
So in the times that we called for it, the situation was resolved before the drone showed up from the neighboring communities that we requested it from.
Okay. And you mentioned the question of wants versus needs, and the Byrne Foundation has been very generous in providing or offering to give us $15,000. If you had to list a need of the department, where could this $15,000 have gone before it went to a want?
So the $15,000 can't go anywhere but the drone program. That's what the grant/donation was written for, the request. That's how the Byrne Foundation works. You send in a specific request. As far as a need, I'm proud to say that the town of Enfield takes care, the department gets all the stuff that it has for needs to support our community.
I have one more question, and that is, you noted that this is something that might attract officers to here and perhaps keep them, but would it also be something that would then make them more desirable to another department somewhere else, and all the more reason for them to leave?
So that is a great question. Enfield officers, and I'm proud to say, is they're all cross-trained through most situations that we might have to handle in Enfield. So as the select board could attest to through the years, every day our officers are trying to be poached by other towns. So I wouldn't say that adding a drone operator certificate or license to an individual would make them more susceptible to being coaxed away by other towns, because we're trying to keep them top trained, the best response available for Enfield, which makes every town around us and throughout the state want them as well, which is a very proud point.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to just sum up and go back to the needs and want question. It seems to me that if we're going to ask for money from outside very generous foundations, that we should confine it to our needs. I find it very hard to believe that every need of the Enfield Police Department is already being satisfied. And if it is, kudos to you.
Thank you. Chief? I'll get to you later.
Chief Holland again, just to address some of the questions that have come up, I think some of them have been absolutely great. So the training that we're looking at is a 3-day class, which includes the preparation for your FAA certification. It is a law enforcement drone class that specifically covers how to use a drone for law enforcement purposes. The accident or incident report that was talked about is actually an online fillable form through the FAA. And then our policy, the current draft policy already does have a part in it where each training or deployment of the drone requires a documentation of why it was sent out, what the results were, so that we can come back to the select board or whoever's looking for that data in the future and say, this is the results that it's had. A couple things I'd just add as well, that several times we've requested the drone. They were several hours out. Incidents were solved before they were needed. Several that we really wanted a drone, there was not a drone operator available. So I know that there are a lot of them in the state. They're not always available. Fish and Game, a lot of times when we call, they're 3 to 4 hours out. Right? Lebanon, they're great. They are a great partner. If their drone operator is tied up on a call, they're not. They can't just. Their first service is to Lebanon. They can't just leave to come to Enfield because we want their drone. Ultimately, I believe that this is a great tool to add in conjunction with our new K-9 program that is going to. We are an aging community. Over the last several years, we do more and more search and rescues, if you want to call them that, searching for temporarily missing people. And I believe that it absolutely, I would never misrepresent that this is a need, right? Every year when I sit down with the budget committee and I sit down with the CIP committee, right, we look at, is this a want or is this a need? And I truly believe, I know some people may find it hard to believe, but the town of Enfield provides us with all the needs that we need to operate as a PD and provide the services to the town. But it doesn't mean when somebody else is willing to give us a donation and enhance our abilities to serve our community, that we shouldn't take a want in the future. If the drone lasts 5 years, 10 years, I'm too close to retirement for that. It won't be me standing up here, but the future chief, they're going to have to justify if they can't find another grant or donation, the future chief's going to have to justify to the CIP committee and to the budget committee and to the select board, is it worth the cost of $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 in that 10 years? But based off this program, we would have the data. Is it worth it? And at that point, I have no doubts that the CIP committee, the budget committee, or the select board has the thing to say no if you can't prove it, that you can't lay it out there for them. I think it's just a force multiplier, and it would be a good thing for our community.
Thank you. Someone had their hand up. In the back row, sir.
Good evening, Alex Meyer, Lipan Circle. I also wanted to sort of echo the benefits that have been laid out here. Like, I think no one would argue that finding lost children and, assessing fires is a great use case for a drone or something. I guess my question would be, well, equip our fire department with something like that. They almost certainly be involved in a search and rescue situation, certainly a fire, of course, or even the public works department, right? Like if we efficiencies by inspecting the water tower, that's amazing, right? I guess my concerns are, I have a lot of amendment-related, right? Like, don't believe that anyone uses this in a way inconsistent with today, right? But as the chief just said, right, in 5 to 10 years, like, we have new leadership, right? And once we decision as a town, sort of moving governed by an internal policy, but that can be changed. That's just sort of stems from, right? And when this is coupled with other technologies, potentially, could have some unintended consequences. I share the surveillance concern. I think that, benefits of the drone could be also captured by other means. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Craig Sanborn, I live on George Hill Road. So I take note of the discussions of needs and the precautions and us and the fact that the cost of replacement, et cetera, will be proven or not proven by the record of what is accomplished during the lifespan of the first drone. But the perspective I'm taking is the primary use of this drone would be to surveil things like public happenings, disasters, the occasional and rare case of a barricaded suspect, crime scene, and so forth. All pretty obvious stuff. The important thing to consider here, I think, is a matter of timing. If you are trying to find a lost child or a wandering older person, it really is a question of timing because the weather might be getting worse, it's getting dark, might vanish in a sleet storm or something. All these kinds of things have been known to happen. It happened 4 times in the last year or whatever it is, they said. I have some acquaintance with the search and rescue in this state because I have the job of being trail master for the Cardigan Highlanders Volunteer Trail Crew. We tend 10 miles of trail on that range, and we do on occasion get lost hikers or lost children or something. And I will say that the various search and rescue volunteer groups that were listed do in fact exist. They have trainings and practices as well as being called out when there actually is a call as a result of usually Fish and Game making a determination. But there's the time factor. Time factor is the one that I feel is important here because especially children, they'll deteriorate pretty fast in the woods. And you need to be able to find who you're looking for rather quickly. It takes a long time, usually a few hours at best, for anybody with a drone or other search and rescue abilities to get here from places where they normally operate, which was usually in the mountains, not so much around here. I happen to think that this particular drone, if used according to the ways the chief has described, not only can help cover this area, the timeliness of getting to somebody fast really counts. But it also enables Enfield to take part in mutual aid to other departments, whether fire or police. There are plenty of Canaan Fire Department people who've had to interrupt their suppers and get called out onto the mountain to find some lost hiker or something. The use of drone technology can really speed up this entire search business by allowing a considerable focus on the people who are lost. Lastly, if it is a drone that has a speaker and a microphone so you can hear what's going on down there, and you are able to hover over the lost person and possibly use a searchlight under the ground, you can help guide them to safety a bit faster than you can hike there yourself. Just saying, there's possibilities here, and I think that the public safety aspect of it would cause this to merit very serious consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, last comment, sir. Oh, next to last. Okay.
Hi, good evening.
Hands I didn't see.
My name is Paul DeMonte. Fairly new resident to Enfield, about 2 years now, my wife and I, so it's kind of exciting to be in a small setting like this, coming from a big city like New York, where no one really hears you. So this is exciting and intimidation by seeing my bold spot on screen. So anyways,
Welcome to the club.
yeah. All the speaking points that were mentioned previously for me are great. The reasons for the drone, I believe, are great. When I first read the article online that drone was possibly coming to Enfield, my first thought was it's another eye in the sky for surveillance. I, as a filmmaker, have worked on multiple documentaries that have kind of pushed me into the direction of being someone who supports privacy. So for me, my knowledge of surveillance and privacy-enhanced methods is my concern. Even as something as looking at Microsoft Teams, signing up for this to use as our meeting for tonight, we've already accepted terms and conditions for artificial intelligence to study everything that's going on right now. So little things like that we're not really familiar with in real life because we just go with the flow. But just to bring it to light that my interest is in really the topic of privacy for people, especially the older we get, the more things that come out in terms of technology, we really just don't grasp and understand that much, and that's kind of the purpose of technocrats, to really just push technology on people, to surveil people in any way it can give it. It can be presented. A drone, I'm not saying that the police department will actually utilize that to their advantage, but I don't know who the next person who will be after Chief Holland or the person after that. So it's one of those things that something gets implemented and then in 10 years it's used for the advantage for someone that we all did not agree to. So just once again, I'm not for or against, but I just come on to share my statements in regards to privacy and surveillance. Thank you.
Very much, sir. Oh. Dr. Beaufet on the screen.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Good. Have a question for Chief Holland. Of the times that the drones from other towns were requested, how many times were they instrumental in resolving whatever issue there was that you were requesting them for?
So for all the times that we requested it, it did not arrive in time. They were too long out, or it was not available. The operators weren't available.
So you resolved it without the drone?
We actually haven't had a live drone mission, I guess is actually what they call them.
Okay.
Sorry. Deputy
Go ahead.
Chief Fry just corrected me. We did have one that they did show up before we didn't.
And was it instrumental in resolving the problem?
Well, the drone was in the air. We found the missing person walking on the road.
By the drone?
No.
Okay.
This is why we have teamwork.
That's all I have to ask. Thank you.
Okay.
Kylie?
Kylie.
Mine's real quick. I don't have a problem with the drone. I think it's a good drone program, but I guess my feeling is before you go out and solicit donations, it should have come to CIP. It should have been in the program. And if you had come to CIP and said, we'd like to do this, but we want to get a grant to do it, I'd just like to see things like this in the program because it is over $10,000. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, ready for the board's comments?
I'm ready.
I'd like to make one small comment. You know, when we think about it, $15,000 is a tiny, tiny drop of the bucket, but we're not dealing with money here. We're dealing with the events of the day that we see in the news and how fearful people have become. Let's keep that all in mind, okay? Enfield is, fortunately for all of us, a very safe place. Thank you.
John, I have a few questions. I would like to echo what John said about the safety of Enfield. And also, I'd like to acknowledge it's a credit to our police department and community policing and the involvement and engagement of our populace. I think that's really important. I wanted to just go back and hit on a few things. Liz Rizzo talked a little bit about, she had asked a question about the town report and how you selected the numbers. And I wanted to ask you, are the numbers that you use and the way you do the breakout based on the NIBRS reporting numbers? And I'm National Incident, you're going to be able to tell the rest of what NIBRS is. I used to do your reporting.
It's the National Incident Reporting System. So our numbers based in the town report are based off crimes. Okay. And that's what we report to the feds and to the state.
So we could break it out, but it's not something we have in the past.
Correct. And if this program is adopted, that is a requirement of the policy, is to track every deployment so that we can.
And then this question is either a town manager ed question or a question for you. I'm not sure who. Would we require additional liability insurance, or would it be covered under our current policy?
I haven't researched that specifically, but I'm really sure that it would just fall under our normal liability policy. We talked about other different programs in different departments, adding them on, and every time so far it's just gone under the policy that we have under our municipal policy.
And as a follow-up to that, if we were to lose a drone, like in a tree or somewhere, I assume there'd be some amount of tracking, although I have hesitation, not about the drone, but because I have items that own tracking, and Enfield's terrain isn't always conducive to your GPS telling you where your dog is. If we were to lose the drone, is that something, we don't have anything else that flies that you would lose of that value in this town. Is that something that might be covered under some kind of loss? Probably not.
We could talk about it. If we added it to our insurance policy, we could, which, again, I don't have the cost of that, but it would be relatively small, I'm sure, but it would be something we have to talk about.
I have read a lot of the comments online. I've had a lot of people send me comments and text me and talk to me in person. And the opinion of some people, which I really do want to acknowledge, is that it's kind of creepy to worry that Big Brother in the sky is watching. It's not about Enfield. It's not about anything bad that Enfield's doing. So I want to acknowledge that there's a general concern that with AI and with technology, there's this monitoring in place that sometimes we don't realize we're signing up for. So every time I walk into a church service, every time I walk down the street, there's a chance somebody with their dash camera, somebody is uploading something somewhere. I want to acknowledge that. How in this little small confine of our town do we make sure, like, say the feds never get a copy so they can see a random, hey, we were flying over doing this nice thing, and now they've got all of our faces, and they were like, Kate's on Main Street, standing at this corner at 6:15 p.m. How do we ensure that never happens?
Because, and again, I also want to acknowledge that there are, I read the online comments, I talk to the people, and there are some people, and I don't want to by any means minimize, their concerns on that. And that's why we specifically put in the policy that the drone is to not be used for surveillance. So the only way that Kate down on Main Street would be caught on the camera would be if we were doing a training mission and they're not recorded. So there's nothing to give, for Big Brother to get from us. The other thing that was brought to my attention when we first brought this up was looking at the drone that we're going to purchase and what are the capabilities of it. And the two that we've narrowed it down to are both encrypted. So somebody else, they don't have it's supposed to, I never want to say never in computer stuff, but minimize the ability for somebody else to hack into that and say steal or take off of the chip that's on there, whatever is on there. With that being said, that is specifically why, we'll not be using the drone for surveillance. We won't be using it to watch peaceful protest. We won't be using it to just patrol through Main Street and this, that is not, I know some people have thrown out there, maybe they could catch some speeders with it, stuff like that. Absolutely not going to happen. This is going to be used for the things that we described that they were going to be used for. And I would expect here in Enfield and, in our community that if it is misused in the future, that people will be held accountable for its misuse.
And then you have given us this draft policy. I've read it, but where in this policy does it tell us about retention? Do you have some kind of point at which they destroy? Right. In the what? The retention and management. So I read it, and then it's like handled in accordance with existing policy on data and records.
Yeah, so we
where applicable. So that doesn't mean anything to me because I don't know what your policy
So we
says.
follow the state law, which
Okay.
specifies how long we can keep recordings, i.e. body cameras and stuff like that.
And how long is that typically? I know it's probably case-based, but
It is case by case based, but the state law specific, so if it were to record something that was not used in a criminal or a investigation and stuff like that, you have to keep it for at least 90 days, but you have to get rid of it within 6 months, I believe it is, off the top of my head.
so especially in the current federal environment, we've been told we can't make certain policies that prohibit certain entities, who shall not be named in this meeting, from using town property and town funds, right? But we can stand by and do certain things. So what's to say that, I'm going to name them. What's to say ICE can't come to town and be like, give me your data, even though we're following it? So it's sitting there retained. What's to say we have them come to town and say, give me all your data? How do we stop? And they be stopped?
I'm not sure what data you're
No, so
talking
you've taken,
about.
let's say you've taken 20 videos that might be used and it's within that retention period. What's to say that ICE can't come to town and use them for something for themselves?
If they had a search warrant, then I'm going to have to give it to them. But I mean, what they would get a video of is our drone going up and searching for a elderly person that was, missing on, up by Smith Pond, or because we're not recording training missions, right? And even if we did, those would be, there's no sense in doing a training mission of sending a drone down Main Street where it's populated like that, because that's easy for me to find people, hopefully, right?
So if you drove by Kate's lemonade stand that's undocumented on Main Street, right? We're going to pick on me because that's easy. And you came upon a person who wasn't white like everyone in this room. I'm not saying you, but the feds. Yeah. Could the feds be like, give me this, we have a, because they've been impinging on other people's rights. What is to say that won't happen with our data?
If they, to be fully transparent, if they walked into my PD with a federal warrant signed by a judge that said that, give me the drone video of Kate on, Main Street on her lemonade stand, I would be forced to do it just as if any other PD that came in, federal agency, state agency, with a search warrant. That's the only way I'm giving anything up.
Judicial warrant, not an administrative warrant.
Correct.
Signed.
Yep, signed by a judge.
Okay. And then I guess my only other is, it's not a question, it's a comment in general. I think the Byrne Foundation is one of the most incredibly wonderful resources in the Upper Valley, and we have been incredibly blessed as a school district and as a region to have them. I worry about, I call it fishing in the pond, and I've had this discussion with the school district. They have a specific policy. I think there are a lot of things out there, and I'm going to acknowledge the want versus need conversation. They do things like public art, and that is definitely, public art is a want. It is not a need. So I want to acknowledge that, and I want to say that I'm very thankful for this, but I do really want to, as a town, to be cognizant of how often we go fishing in that pond. And I would feel a little more comfortable in general. I'm not saying this isn't something that we need. I am for that will go to good use, but I want to be really thoughtful going forward about how many times we go to the Byrne Foundation. That's my.
Thank you, Kate. Other comments from the board?
I'd like to make a couple of small comments. I'd like to know that we're going to follow the town purchasing policy so that we'll receive bids from contractors who can provide the drone and make a selection according to the purchasing policy of the town because it's over $10,000.
Yeah, so we've already reached out, we've already gone beyond the policy, which requires a minimum of 3, and we reached out, and I think we've got 5 or 6 different, I guess you would say, prices versus bids, but, because they're a direct purchase item, they're not a contract purchase item. Right. Yes.
And that'll come back to the appropriate, don't know if that comes back to us or just goes to the town manager. Chosen, but
And
that'll be
we'll
reviewed.
talk through that if we go through the full RFP process. It'll come back to the select board, and if it,
That will go through the RFP
so we can
process.
just purchase.
Policy, okay. I'd like to see the drone marked as police department in case someone has binoculars and is curious who is a drone circling in their area. So I think it should be a marked.
I'm not opposed to marking the drone.
Yeah, I just think someone has binoculars, they deserve not to be overly worried, and if they can see it's police department, I think they'd be a little less worried if it's in their net.
Sure. Hopefully they get better eyesight than I do.
Other comments?
I've just got a couple of other things. I particularly liked the policy. I would like to see an annual review of the policy, however. I don't think we need to make it an ordinance, as was suggested, which is a very fair comment. But I do think it needs an annual review, report of how the drone is doing in terms of the enumeration of results, and an annual review for the select board to decide if there need to be any changes to the policy. And then the last thing, I like the policy statement of the enumeration of uses as well as the number of times, and it reminded me with Branker on the cover that we should be doing the same thing with the canine. I'd like to see a report which indicates the use of Branker on an annual basis and see how successful that program was. I'm confident it will be, frankly. And then other than that, I think a follow-up to make certain that we are in line with the state requirements for destroying any records which are video, particularly, of course, which are kept by the drone and that they're destroyed in the appropriate time, according to the state law, as you stated. And that, I'm all set.
Thank you. Other comments from the board?
Yeah, I guess I'll just say, I think, the concerns around, privacy and recordings are well stated and are being heard, so I won't repeat a lot of that. A lot of the questions I asked last time have been answered, like the encryption piece is very important. I do think I won't go through this in detail, but as I go through the drafted potential policy, there's a few things that should be reviewed. Like there was a good section on the annual reporting. We should add costs to that. I think we should, I'm on the board on page 4, we should just strengthen some of the language, like around surveillance. We should just make it very clear, not used for surveillance without a judicial warrant, so we make it clear what the exception is. And then I think most of my concerns have been addressed through other statements as well, so I won't continue repeating them.
Thank you. Alice, any comments?
Yeah, I really appreciate all of the great points that everyone has brought up, and it's not easy to think about. And I just will echo that I think that probably our faith in, or our trust in the ability of laws to protect us at this time is probably like at an all-time low. Sometimes they're seeming kind of bendy, particularly at the federal level. And so I just really appreciate all of the privacy concerns that have been brought up. It might just be a matter of timing.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 I'll make a motion to accept the donation of the drone with thanks and direct the town manager or their designee to create a town-wide policy so that the other departments who use it have guidance.
May I make propose an addition to that?
Sure. Game?
Let the drone not be placed in service until the select board formally adopts a small unmanned aircraft policy or ordinance.
Can we, yeah. Let's take out the end of my sentence and insert Eric. Is that something we can do for the minutes? Got it. So amended, thank you.
We need to make your motion include the acceptance of the.
The in the beginning was a make a motion to accept donation with thanks. We can say it's $15,000 from the Byrne Foundation.
Byrne Foundation to be named in the.
Let's start the motion from the beginning.
Do you want me to just read what I, want me to?
Yeah.
Want to withdraw that?
Yeah, read, go for it.
All right. I'll make a motion to authorize the acceptance of the drone grant awarded by the Byrne Foundation with the total estimated project cost of $15,000, consisting of no town match, and hereby authorize the town manager or their designee to take such action and execute all documents that may be necessary, but the drone not be placed in service until the select board formally adopts a small unmanned aircraft policy or ordinance.
I'll second that.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you. And now, we begin the real work of the evening. Approval of the minutes of February 17th, 2026, regular and non-public session. Any comments about the minutes? I thought they were excellent as usual.
I move we accept the minutes of February 17th, 2026, non-public and public.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any comments, corrections?
I was not there, but on the non-public minutes of February 17th, it would be line 18. They missed an L in Russell. I'm sure that's probably not the only grammatical issue, but just thought I'd toss that out. Could be fixed.
Anything else? Excuse me, yes? Well, we're in now.
We're in the middle of a motion. Could you
Yes.
just hold for a minute, please?
Yes. Please ask the question.
At the microphone.
Yes, thank you, Katie.
I apologize for the interruption, Sharon Beaufet of Enfield, and it's just a procedural question. I have a question, during public comment later, I have a public comment to make about the McConnell well and the letter of deficiency that was discussed at the February 17th meeting. If you close the minutes for that meeting, that's fine. I wasn't at that meeting then, so this would be a subsequent comment and question about that. So can I make that later? Or will you say to me, no, sorry, you can't talk about that because we're already done with minutes?
Nothing can be included in the minutes for something that didn't actually occur at the meeting. So if you want to make a public comment, even if it's not true, you could make it, right? You're allowed to say anything you want in public comment, basically.
Public comments of this meeting that we're presently in will be a part of the minutes of this meeting.
Correct.
Sounds like you're asking to make a public comment about the last meeting, which has nothing to do with closing out those minutes.
I did not.
So if you'd like to make a comment at this meeting during the public session, that will certainly be routine, and would be noted as part of the minutes of this meeting.
No, I totally get what you're saying.
Not a problem.
I just needed to clarify that, that's all.
Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying it.
Would never want to prevent you from making a comment at the end of a meeting.
Okay.
We have a
Motion on the
motion
table.
and a second. have a second?
I made a motion.
Alice seconded.
Alice seconds?
Yes.
Okay. A motion and a second. Any comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 I'll
Thank you.
abstain.
Minutes and public and non-public. Next up, we have board reports.
Yeah, the Enfield Village Association had their annual meeting weeks ago, where they, at the community building, and they celebrated the retirement of Harry Trumbull, who has been the president of EVA for over a decade. It was a wonderful evening. A lot of people from the town showed up. We really appreciate it. And unfortunately, I did have to miss the last Heritage Commission meeting. But there has been discussion recently about preservation and display of the grand drape that hopefully will be able to be rehung in this room at some point. And so those conversations are ongoing with the town and the Heritage Commission.
Thank you.
The planning board had a relatively short meeting this time. Mostly, basically Lindsay came just to make sure everybody was aware of the rules for town meeting, which really boiled down to that all conversations regarding all warrant articles have to be outside of the polls. And that's going to apply to a number of different articles because we're now in SB2. So if somebody has a question about the budget, you got to go outside. If somebody has a question about zoning, you have to go outside. If somebody has a question about the new truck, you got to go outside. It's sort of the antithesis of deliberative town meeting where the intent is to talk about things. This is once people enter the building, there's no more discussion. The discussion has to be outside.
No discussion, but can there be field to read?
So Lindsay she clarified how things will be presented, where there will be, and that sort of thing. So yes, like the full, because taking the zoning as an example, it's a 150-page document. When you put the whole thing together, copies of that will be available inside. And that brings up if somebody says, hey, on page 20, I have a question. In order to have a question answered and any discussion of it, it has to be outside the building.
Thank you. That's an important update. I have nothing to report.
The Energy Committee discussed the topic of community power, which at this time is marginally above the competitive rate from Liberty Utilities as a result of being competitive with them. So folks need to be aware that if they are interested in trying to go back to save money, they certainly can do that. They can exclude themselves from community power and can go back to Liberty Utilities if they choose. It's a bit of a drawn-out process. It takes a couple of billing cycles to get there, and they should be careful to calculate what it would save them, which at this point is not a lot of money, but they should be aware that it's perfectly possible to do that. And then the other comment will come up later in the minutes.
Thank you.
Conservation Commission will meet this coming Thursday at 7 p.m. at DPW. I did want to draw everyone's attention to a joint venture that the town of Enfield is doing with the Shaker Museum and New Hampshire Autobahn. The program is called What's All the Fuss About Rodent Control in New Hampshire's Wildlife. It's a presentation about why some rodent poisons are killing New Hampshire's wildlife and pets and strategies to reduce secondary poisonings. It's something that conservation has been talking about. It's something that is very pertinent to Enfield, and I can tell you we have had a rodenticide poisoning of a domestic pet in which they died in this town, so I hope some of you will take the opportunity and head over Sunday, March 15th at 2 p.m. at Chosenville Performance Center. That's on Route 4A, so if you're not familiar with Chosenville Performance Center, it's the former La Salette Shrine Church that is kind of, you're facing La Salette, the former La Salette property. It is to the back on the left.
Thank you. Okay, next up we have the town manager's report.
Yes, thank you. Just going to go off some of the talk we had about the election and just remind the select board that on March 10th, we do need you present at the election. So not in your calendar, let's make sure it gets there. For a staff report, I attended, and I know multiple people in here did, the retirement party for Mike Crate this last Friday. I would again like to thank him for his 17 years of service to the town of Enfield and would like to wish him well in his retirement. He has decided to return to work for the town of Enfield as a part-time officer after the required timeframes sent by the New Hampshire retirement. So we're looking forward to that. But the department put together a great celebration for Senior Officer Crate. There were 75 to 100 people that stopped by to wish him well. That was a great time. We do have an applicant that's moving through the process that we expect to start sometime around the June timeframe this year, as long as the background checks and final testing go as planned. So we're continuing to work through that process at this time. On a finance director update, MRI reported that we had 13 candidates. Of those, they're interested in 5 or 6 of them that they're going to do initial interviews on. They'll be conducting their first round of interviews, and I'm working with our committee to set up some times for the second round of interviews, which will be our internal first round, if you will. So we'll continue working on that, but I've had constant contact with MRI on the candidates that have come through, and we will be looking over all the applications and working with them on the one. There was an announcement today that town roads will be posted as of March 4th, so that's coming up here in a couple days. This has been a very bad winter for paved roads, as many of you driving around may have noticed. The very cold temperatures in the beginning of the year and then some midwinter warm-ups have really caused some frost heave problems. With the road postings, all vehicles that weigh over 6 tons are prohibited from accessing these roads until posting is rescinded, usually around the first part of May. This includes all heavy commercial trucks and most delivery trucks. As usual, the town will continue to work with people in the town in these delivery trucks for early morning access on days after a hard night's freeze. But if you have any questions, please get a hold of DPW and work with them. For land use updates, the ZBA will meet Tuesday of next week for an area variance setback intrusion application for 111 New Hampshire Route 4A. Construct a garage and accessory dwelling unit within the required setbacks between the street and Mascoma Lake. Subject property is 0.6 acres and is located in the R1 zoning district. If you want any more information about that, contact Rob at the Land Use Office. Planning board met last week, as Eric mentioned, with Lindsay talking about consultation for town meeting and voting day. In the building department, 10 permits have been issued to date and 5 within the last 2 weeks. So we are seeing a little bit of uptick as we thought as the weather starts to change. Then Vinny will be attending a class this next week on understanding septic systems from the New Hampshire building official. The Public Safety Department, the 3 officers in the EMT training classes have started the portion of the class where they've been cleared to do patient contact, so they're moving through that class very well. Last week, all the members of the police department participated in a semi-annual active shooter training at the Enfield Village School. The department conducts active shooter training a couple times a year, but always makes sure to train at the Enfield Village School for at least one of those trainings to be as prepared as possible. The fire department and ambulance services continue to gain new members. I think we're adding a new member to each of those services right now. The fire department also completed the sale of the old water tanker. We will be storing that vehicle for the department that purchased it until they can come get the vehicle after the winter season. You remember we sold it to a department out of Kentucky, so they have quite a drive to get it home. Chief Neely has worked really hard, I will say, with the state of New Hampshire, and it appears that the town of Enfield will be hosting a firefighter level 1 certification this fall at our EOC. So I'd like to just thank him for his hard work in bringing that class here. And then last Tuesday, the Enfield EMS hosted a quarterly regional training with Dartmouth Hitchcock Medical Center here at our EOC as well. So the public safety building's getting a lot of use for our emergency services. In DPW, the request for reimbursement has been submitted for the first grant truck delivered early January. So we should be receiving our check for $180,000 in the next 4 to 5 weeks, which is 75% of the total cost of the truck that was just brought here. One thing that we are working on while working on the destruction of the truck that we had to destroy from that grant, the representative was talking to us about some of our other trucks. In this last year, we were planning on using a 2006 truck and replacing that. That truck has been ordered, but as you remember at deliberative session, we talked about getting rid of a 2012 truck. This representative said if we would be willing to flip those 2 trucks, that we would be eligible for another diesel grant. So DPW has already moved forward and applied for that grant in hopes of saving the town 75% of the cost of our next truck. And we'll just keep you updated on how that moves forward, but I'd like to thank them for putting that work forward. As we said earlier, the last check was $180,000 that was saved to the town. Then the last thing, you may have seen them around town, but Highway's been hauling snow out of a lot of the large piles that have built up around town this year. So they're trying to get some of those snowbanks out of the way, and they're poking some holes through and getting ready for the higher temperatures and rain that we're going to have this year. So hopefully we have less flooding than we may have had. And a quick recreation update. Summer camp details will be released this week, and they may have been released today. Recreation summer camp will be running June 29th to August 10th. It'll be 7 weeks this year. I think I mentioned it in another meeting that we did 8 weeks last year, but it was really hard that last week keeping enough staff to keep the camp open. So we're going to move back to 7 weeks this year. Camp registration for Enfield residents will be increasing from $150 a week to $175 a week. This is to cover the cost of camp. We did a salary analysis today and then the cost of camp. We just want to make sure that this is breaking even. And then the cost will be $200 for non-residents. Online registration for Enfield residents will start on March 17th at 9 a.m. and non-residents, if there are any slots left, will start on March 24th. Spots are expected to be reserved early again here. I mentioned last meeting that the Easter egg hunt will be held on April 4th. That will be held at 10 a.m. I did not have the start date this time, but April 4th at 10 a.m. will be our annual Easter egg hunt. Mascoma youth sports basketball season has ended. We had 140 players in the kindergarten through 6th grade participate, along with 20 volunteer coaches. I'd like to thank them for their time and service in coaching our athletics. And baseball and softball registration will open tomorrow. And then the last day of the Whaleback Ski Ride program was February 17th. The program went very well this year, and Todd would like again to thank all the many volunteers that helped at Whaleback, the Whaleback Mountain staff, Mascoma High School District, and the Butler Bus Company that helped make this a successful program. And that's the end of my report.
Thank you, Ed. Question what? Oh, David, you have a question? Okay, you have your hand up? Maybe I should talk to my mic.
I was just waiting to see if getting my hand up for public comment.
I missed what you said.
Jumped the gun on public comment.
I was just waiting to have my hand up for public comment. That's all.
Yeah, so for the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Can I ask one question on the town manager's report, please?
Yes.
Ed, indicated they're going to be doing a firefighter level 1 training. As part of our transition to a more professional department under the direction of the town, had talked about what the future looked like. And I know we have firefighters who are not level 1 trained. Will those folks be getting that training?
They will be offered that training. I don't believe it'll be mandatory.
So there's no plan to move us to a department where everybody has.
Not at this moment for firefighter 1, because we do have people that respond outside the fire, and firefighter 1 is required for interior firefighting tactics. So we're moving in that direction. We're encouraging people, not mandatory at this time.
Okay.
Wait, we're getting an answer from Chief.
So I'll be quick, John. As a police chief, also emergency services director. So Phil's done a great job of implementing a program through the department that really pushes us towards that goal of getting everybody certified. Obviously, as a volunteer department or on-call department, it's hard to get everybody to find the time all the time, but the more opportunities we make, the more we can hold people to getting there. And I think he's doing a really good job of pushing us towards that finish line.
Thank you.
One of the things we did do, just to jump in there, is we've incentivized that training through pay increases in the department. So people that are uncertified get paid less than certified.
Thank you.
Good to go? Next step. 2026 town meeting discussion. Deliberative session.
This is kind of a follow-up from the last meeting. We had a little bit of discussion, but before we get into the talks of we want to hold it on a similar day next year, what location do we want to have it at? You guys had mentioned last time that you wanted to make sure the entire board was present.
Thoughts?
I have a couple
I
of thoughts.
don't think we should have it any earlier because I didn't realize that the timing was based on the schedule of budget, which is not that movable. And I think we still felt so crunched for time that I don't think we should have it earlier.
I guess in the end, I think it worked well this year overall. And after talking with both the school IT group and our supervisor of the checklist around the logistics of having the checklists available on time, I think it worked well the way we did it this year.
Repeat your last sentence.
So I asked the supervisor of the checklist, who, we all check in to get our ballots and register to vote with, about the logistics of potentially doing both the school and the town on the same day, because there'd be some efficiency for people if you had it all on one day. And their initial thoughts were, one, it'd be a very long day if the town's deliberative session was a long deliberative session, which it was. Just in terms of pure hours, they would have then had sort of an 8 a.m. to probably 9 p.m. day. But also they would have to prepare 2 sets of checklists, one for each meeting in 2 different locations on the same day, which they could do, but would be more challenging than having them be on separate days.
I have to admit, I would be very much against having them both on the same day. I think that would lead to a fair amount of confusion and even more anxiety than usual.
I'd like us to consider having the deliberative session on a weeknight, either a Wednesday or a Thursday. I'd like to consider having it here in this room. I think that if we asked the librarian, through her kindness, to be open on that evening, we could provide childcare services downstairs, even if we have to bring in a couple of high school kids to help out. Therefore, families could attend. I think it would work out. A lot of towns do it weeknights. I think we can do that.
I am not in favor of making any changes at this point. I think I was previously in favor of trying to move the location to the high school auditorium when we had more people. Now, depending on how people feel about SB2, and I think we'll get more feedback as people go to the ballot, and we'll understand more and be able to talk to our neighbors more about what they feel worked and didn't work, we could make a decision later. I think Field Village School has been working for us. I personally heard a lot of really good things about the video and the video quality. And, you know, look, I've been a key proponent of bringing your children to town meeting. I mean, I'm the one who brings my kid blankets, a hobby horse, a bunch of snacks, and orders in pizza. I didn't even bother to do it this year because, not because we didn't expect it to be long, but because there wasn't interest. I don't think we need to center anything around childcare. And I think encouraging people to be open to the idea that children are an important part of community and creating community, and they can be in the room. Certainly we can add to it, but it just, you know, I've got a lot of years in this town. I'm headed into my 9th year here, and a lot of years in the school district. And childcare isn't the linchpin. It's timing, right? It's whether you can get out of work. It's whether you can stay up until midnight, because say we started at 6 o'clock, right? I love you guys to death, but I do not want to hang out with you until 1 a.m. And I am not convinced that people who really want to chat and rehash things aren't going to stay until 1 a.m., right? Like, I mean, I'm up at 1 a.m. working all the time. And you guys, if you look and write to me, you'll know that. But I don't think that's a reasonable expectation of other humans. I'm not ready to change nights. And I definitely don't want to be on the same day as school district. I go to the school district meeting every year, and there are years it's a really long meeting because something, honestly, usually it's when something outrageous happens. Our friends out in Grafton have some interesting maneuvers, and they made one this year. And they're currently about to sue the school district over one of their interesting maneuvers they made. I think combining the interesting antics of a town that we aren't in charge of, but we do have to include in a discussion, and then the fact that this year was very long for reasons that were not part of the warned meeting notice, right? We had expectations of regular business we had to do, and then we had a request from the public, which of course we would honor, and have a full discussion, and we did that, and it was a very long discussion. So I think we have to stay on Saturday, and I think we have to stay away from the school district meeting.
Yeah, I agree with both of your points there. At least one more year, we need to take it to the school. It is something that is well-known. I think people feel comfortable with that process. I think it works out well in terms of space. We'll find out after another year how many people really are going to come. And will they fit in this room?
And I'm very thankful that they came this year. I think it was great. I think we had awesome discussions. So I don't want to say it was too long. I think it's just a matter of learning how the future looks for us.
I think within our prerogative, if we can encourage Lindsay to be firm in both covering, allowing discussion about the warrant articles, not allowing things to meander, if you will, into diatribes off of the warrant article purposes, and possibly considering time limits on people speaking. If they have multiple things that they wish to speak about, perhaps they can speak about each one, then get back into the line.
I think Lindsay is an elected official. We can't tell her how to do her job.
No,
but
I didn't say tell.
I'm not saying that.
I never said that.
What I am saying is that I think she was in a really tough spot this year where some people were refusing to follow her request to stay on topic, right? And that's a tough spot to be in. We deal with that here, and I want to acknowledge how difficult. And I think some people are just outright belligerent because they want to speak at the microphone and they don't care whether they're on topic or not, and that is their decision. I applaud Lindsay for trying to manage it. She was significantly nicer than I would have been.
It was a tough year. I think it was a learning curve year. Many people considered it to still be town meeting, and therefore they felt that it was an open discussion on any topic that they chose to bring up. It needs to be limited to the warrant articles per the rules of SB 2.
Other comments from the board?
I'll just say Lindsay does not need us weighing in on how she runs the meeting. She does a very nice job. She doesn't need us trying to micromanage that. And I don't want people to take my comment that it was long as being a negative. I think that was a positive. Having a public space for people to have discussion about public issues is a very valuable thing. And as an example, the planning board talked about how they should be prepared to present any plan, any zoning changes going forward at that meeting in the similar fashion as was done this year. And viewed that as a generally a positive thing to have that opportunity, to have that discussion around what is going to be on the warrant. So I think it worked well. We should just go forward with another year. We're going to have work on our end to improve our scheduling prior to the meeting, improve our production of the required documents prior to the meeting. So I think we should focus on those improvements this year and leave the meeting itself the exact same.
Alice, any comment?
Just agree with Eric, understanding the timing more. Get better every year.
We move on?
I will say it just for the minutes that we will start working on scheduling the similar date at the similar location to.
Out of curiosity, how many of you out there were in session? So, good? Good, yes? Yes, someone there has their hand up.
I do think we have to have this discussion into the microphone, you guys.
Point. All right.
Sorry.
Next up, timber yield tax interest abatement request.
So in your packet, you have a letter from Sarah Hannon, our assessing clerk, kind of explaining the situation and the request to abate the interest and to resubmit this bill.
Yeah, and the reasons are pretty clear and pretty distinct. Sir?
Yes, I'm Rick Evans. I'm the timber appraiser from DRA.
Okay.
Sarah asked me to attend tonight and explain to you what this is all about, so that's why I'm here.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
So, in front of you, you have a second billing for Operation 24-145-11. That was on the Henry Laramie Wildlife Management Area. The job was completed last February 2025. Julie Huntley did her job correctly. She generated a worksheet, certification, a warrant, and a bill for it last July. Board signed it, sent it to your tax collector. And the tax collector, instead of sending the bill to Hopkinton Forestry and Land Clearing, who was the purchaser of stumpage rights on state land, she sent the bill to the New Hampshire Fish and Game Department. The Fish and Game Department received it and put it in their round filing cabinet. Never bothered to tell us at DRA or the town of Enfield that they had received it. Well, it came to our attention about 2 weeks ago. So I helped Sarah generate a new bill that's identical to the first one. But you do need to abate the first one and the 6 months of interest that it has accrued because the bill was never sent to the proper entity. So there certainly shouldn't be any interest accruing on it.
I noticed that there is a potential motion already for us to make, correct?
I know that I saw one.
On page 12.
Is there? Yeah.
In order to comply with DRA's directive, I am requesting the following motion. This is from Sarah Cannon, Assessing Administrator, and Wendy Huntley, Tax Collector. I read it?
If there's no further discussion, I'll go ahead and make the motion. So I'll move to revise the original timber tax warrant dated July 24th, 2025 for Operation 24-145-11-T and authorize the reissuance of the bill with the new billing date of March 4th, 2026, and that the interest accrued under the original billing date be waived as part of this reissuance.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 It's unanimous. Thank you.
You have another job on state land that was completed last week. You'll be going through this process again in May. I just urge you to try to stay on top of it and make sure this bill goes to the right entity, so I don't have to come back here next March and do
We'll
this
do our
again.
best.
Who is their
Drive
supervisor?
carefully going home, sir.
And you can always come online, but it's awesome to see you in person.
So next up, SB 538 support request. That's on page 16.
I can introduce this if we want, but it's coming from the Energy Committee for the
Go ahead.
request. The one thing that I would say is, I'll let Tracy explain it, but this is in line from what I've read with our legislative policy that we discussed at the last meeting. So I definitely think it's something we should move forward supporting. Tracy, if you want.
Essentially, is it in support of solar energy?
It's actually ridiculously more detailed than that. But I won't have to elaborate much. The Energy Department discussed it, Energy Committee discussed it, 100% in favor. It allows banks to extend commercial credit for up to 20 years. It extends the length of time that they are allowed to use. In order for them to do it, it needs the permission of the Select Board. Basically it. It's not money from the town. It's money from commercial banks, primarily for commercial users. This doesn't apply to residential users.
Is it not in response to state's abandonment of?
It is a part of it, of course. They want to narrow the amount that people can get under a lien for their solar properties, commercial properties, mind you. This is not residential. This is businesses which want to put in solar. And yes, it is a part of that issue of the state trying to narrow the entire solar industry.
And this is support of the bill.
And this is in support of the bill, which allows the extension of up to 20 years for banks to loan money commercially to commercial users. Whereas left alone, it will be significantly less than that.
That's a quick question. Did this request for support come from the Energy Committee? Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I'd make a motion that we issue the letter as printed.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. It is unanimous. And next up, public comments. Yes, you're on.
Sharon Beaufay, Enfield. So I was not at your meeting, your last meeting, which was February 17th, but I did watch it on YouTube. And so I was aware that there was a letter of deficiency from the state of New Hampshire to the Department of the Environment that was written November 25th and put into your packets. And I'm aware that Ed presented the letter to you because he was rightfully asking permission to have to hire an engineer to study the McConnell well and what could be done with the McConnell well. And you approved $19,000 for that. I was very concerned to hear in 2025, the McConnell well, this was in the letter of deficiency, by the way, McConnell well recorded above the maximum contamination level three times in February, October, and November and those were not reported, and that's why the letter of deficiency to the state in quarterly reports. The public consumed that water while they only received notification quarterly. You know, it's just really hard to have a well contaminated with uranium that I'm told, and I believe as a taxpayer, oh, well, we don't use it except in emergencies, and when we do, we dilute it according to EPA standards with water. I trust that information. This letter of deficiency took away that trust. I'm concerned the matter was not addressed with the select board. The letter was sent November 25th. It was discussed with you on February 17th. There were 2 deadlines in December in that letter that were supposed to be addressed. I don't think they were. There was a date of February 22nd when there was supposed to be already a consultant, already with a plan, and I'm sure you missed that deadline. I also read in the letter that the state could fine you $4,000 per the 3 violations per each. So you could be fined $12,000 of taxpayer money for what? I realize the McConnell well is our best producing well, but it needs special attention because of the uranium. From what was outlined in the letter of deficiency, it appears that it's not being managed well. I'm very concerned about that. Lastly, Tracy, I want to just quickly comment positively. In that meeting, you spoke about public notification and the need for there to be, I'm about transparency. That's why I come to all these meetings. That's why I speak to you. I want more transparency. I want the public to have more transparency about these matters, please. Lastly, I see significant cost associated with the further development of this well. Down the road, $19,000 approved last week for engineering, likely thousands more for a material to treat the radiation if the well is to be used safely. And in approximately 10 years, as I understand it, when that material has to be replaced, it will be considered radioactive. So that's what you're presenting to Enfield, is somebody's going to have to then find out how much does it cost and where does it go. Another added cost to Enfield and probably to the water and sewer users. If Enfield has plenty of water, what people say, I don't understand why we are pursuing developing a well contaminated with uranium that will be an ongoing expense and possible future liability for the town. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a couple comments.
Yes.
First, this was discussed multiple times with the select board through the year. Last year, we talked about every single time that it was slightly over the lowered limits from the EPA. So I don't want anything going out that we were not transparent in talking about this at the select board meetings, because we did. Second, as was discussed at the deliberative session, we use McConnell well very sparingly, and in 2025, it was not connected to the system for drinking water at any time. So during this last year, it was not connected for any purpose, but we still test it on a regular basis right at the thing. Every single time that it tests over the limit, we send letters to the water users, the testing. That's a state and DES requirement that we do. So we do continually put that information out, and I just wanted to clarify that.
My recollection
Thank you very
is,
much for the clarification.
I agree with all that, and my recollection is from the last meeting as well, is that by accepting that contract proposal, we met the state date obligation that we needed to in order to have that be effective.
Yeah, as we stated prior to the letter even being sent to us, we were working with this engineer and a company that did the filtration system for Londonderry over 10 years ago. And they were working pro bono at no cost. As soon as we got this, they engaged with DES. They did a lot of work for us those last few months, making sure that we met those deadlines that were on the letter. We've been in constant contact with DES, who's happy with the progress we've been making. And that letter was to be able to meet the next deadline and to move forward with the planning process.
And I think the contract that we'll get, or the information that we'll get back from the engineer, will tell us whether it's worth pursuing further steps on that well. And it could indeed be a change of decision or a change of policy, but we'll have the engineering report to tell us what direction to go in.
That's an unfortunate thing, but my understanding is in the state of New Hampshire, there are a lot of wells with this uranium issue. It has to do with the type of rock that the water's coming through. We will do our best, and we will keep the public informed, and we'll keep the users informed. We will not allow anyone to be put into danger. Anything
The only other, and it's informational only, it mentions the changes in the flood map, flood insurance maps. Will we get a chance to see those maps? It was part of the informational package which was sent out. It's not part of the agenda per se that we have to discuss, but I want to make sure that we'll have an opportunity to review those newly revised flood maps.
Yeah, if they're newly revised maps, they'll be publicly available.
Because if they're anything less than, if the flood line is anything less than what it was before, there may indeed be residents who can save flood insurance because it will no longer be required. We should look at that carefully and inform anyone who might be affected by a smaller flood zone that they may no longer need flood insurance. And that can be a significant savings.
I think to follow up what Tracy's saying, I think if they were to expand the flood zone, I'm going to pick on the backside of Mascoma Lake. So there's significant elevation on the Shaker Boulevard side of Mascoma Lake, and FEMA at one point had drawn them in just by distance into the flood map, and that was a significant problem. And it took some lobbying to Congress and getting, I believe, Jean Shaheen's office involved to get that corrected. So we would want to really get an eye on that and make sure that our residents aren't accidentally getting wrapped into what I'm going to call the imaginary FEMA flood zone, where, I'm sorry, if the folks, some of those folks on Shaker Boulevard, particularly in the higher points behind the islands, if they go under, our downtown's gone under and you're all gone. So, I mean, that was really how bad the mistake was.
I can be a personal testament to that. I had my house reassessed because I had them shoot the exact, when we had GPS and the satellites, we were able to shoot the exact height of my home, and I could have my house removed from the flood zone when I refinanced my house. So I don't pay flood insurance because I had it looked at. And I'm on Shaker Boulevard.
Thank you. David Beaufay, you have your hand up?
I do. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Two things. First, I wanted to highlight that the 2026 Candidates Forum is tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. 13 of the 17 candidates who have declared for offices for boards, committees, and offices of the town have indicated that they will be there, and that there is posted on the listservs and the Enfield website a Zoom link for those who are unable to attend in person. Certainly welcome anybody that is interested in town affairs to be there, and appreciate the candidates who have agreed to join the session. So thank you. Bill Warren, a previous Enfield moderator, will be the MC for the program, and we have support from the Mascoma AV and radio club who provided support for the deliberative session. So appreciate that. Secondly, I think Lindsay did a very good job for a difficult session, the first session of the SB2 process. And I appreciate all that she did to do that. I think it's a difficult situation when groups such as the planning board have major proposals to be addressed. She allowed that to happen, and I was appreciative that she allowed significant and extended public comment regarding alternatives to perspectives to that presentation. I think it's it's a learning process as we go through the first few years of SB2. And I certainly appreciate the fact that that was at least as good a discussion of various issues as has previously been occurring during regular town meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Any other comments, questions, concerns? Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, folks, for coming.